order. And then I will ask a set of questions that everyone will get to answer, and I'll just kind of randomly pick the order for answering those questions. So with that, our candidates, George Frankel, Val Gold, Jason Hoover, Monique Johns, and Bob Williams, are up here in front of you. George, I'm going to let you start this off with your 3-minute. Yeah, the mic.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Good afternoon. I just wanted to start by thanking off the 23rd RD Committee for hosting this event. My name is George Frankel, and I'm running as a Democrat for Newcastle County Council President. If you want energy, commitment, and new ideas that would ensure Newcastle County has a bright future, you'll vote for me on September 10th. I may be young, but I was born and raised in Newcastle County, and so was my father, and his father, and his father before him. My previous experience representing Delaware was on Capitol Hill. I was appointed by Senator Chris Coons to represent Delaware in the United States Senate Page Program. The United States Senate Page Program has been in existence since the 1820s, and it was a great honor to be selected for this prestigious opportunity. I had the privilege of working on the United States Senate floor with pages from all around the country. To my surprise, it turns out that for decades, our program director had been taking the pages to Winter every spring. None of the pages had ever been to Delaware, and I had the unique opportunity of being a tourist in my own hometown. As you can imagine, the pages were not very excited about being on a bus to Delaware on their day off. But their attitudes changed instantly once we got off I-95 and rolled into beautiful Newcastle County in the springtime, much like today. Pages in Hawaii, Utah, Maine were all amazed by my hometown and its beauty. Seeing this firsthand gave me a fresh perspective on where I grew up. This optimistic perspective about Delaware has stuck with me ever since. We need new, young, and energetic leadership in Newcastle County. We need better transparency and communication in local government. We need elected officials that are going to show up for us. The issues that are important to you, are important to me, are probably important to you too. Like public safety. Just last week we had an issue in Charlie Square. Not only does that immediately affect those involved, it affects our entire community. It affects our businesses, our homeowners. It affects the personal well-being, mental health of our fellow community members. How about having responsible development? Just last week I spoke to the county council about a rezoning that would impact all its nearby residents. The real issue at hand was the lack of communication between those involved in the project and the local residents who felt like they never had a say. Oddly enough, the proposed development had great potential of being accepted by the community. They just need to be included in the conversation. The lack of communication is concerning. And how can I forget about our Newcastle County libraries? I myself am dyslexic, and I had a difficulty time reading in grade school. I learned how to read after school in the Brandywine Hunter Public Library on Falk Road. I don't know where I'd be if that resource wasn't available. We need to make sure our students who are struggling are given all the tools they need to succeed, starting with good libraries. I realize I'm young, but I'm enthusiastic and passionate about Newcastle County. I also think it's worth pointing out that I'm the same age Joe Biden was when he was elected to this same council. I look forward to this campaign and the opportunity to speak with you all after this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Val Gold.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Val Gold. I've been a teacher for over 20 years and have a strong background in education, environmental, and energy policy. I'm a two-time graduate of the University of Delaware and have spent over 5 years of my career teaching here in our state. I also spent much of last year working for the Delaware State Senate as a policy analyst, which provided me the experience of thoroughly researching and understanding the concerns of our fellow Delawareans. During my teaching career, I've observed the challenges that my students' families face and how those obstacles negatively impact student learning outcomes. I want to spend my second career working to improve the lives of those students and families. Lack of affordable housing, environmental injustices, climate change, addiction, and homelessness are straining individuals, families, our environment, and community stability. Many, if not all, of these issues can be addressed through zoning and ordinance, which is what drew me to running for this office. I sincerely believe that if we commit to uplifting everyone while being thoughtful stewards for our environment, we will surely thrive as a collective community. My deep desire to achieve this goal can be illustrated through one of my proudest moments of my time as a Senate policy analyst, the passage of Senate Bill 156 last June. I was approached by one of our state senators with a dilemma. Some of our classroom paraprofessionals wanted to become certified teachers. However, if most of our experienced paraprofessionals did so, they would take a pay cut, since the Delaware Code stipulated they would have to start on the first step of the teacher pay scale. After researching the topic, one of the two solutions I suggested was allowing paraprofessionals to claim a half year of classroom experience for each year spent as a para when applying for teacher certification. This suggestion was adopted and passed as Senate Bill 156, the passage of which is likely helping to address the current teacher shortage while providing a more diverse teacher workforce capable of better educating Delaware's diverse student population. If I am fortunate enough to be elected, I would apply the same collaborative and public serving work ethic to the office. For example, I would work to promote infill methods and inclusionary zoning, helping the county to avoid environmentally harmful overdevelopment while making existing population centers more accessible and livable for all residents. Since each of our communities is unique, I would work with council members, civic associations, developers, and community leaders to ensure that residents are included in a development decision-making process and that such plans will result in sustainable outcomes. I would like to see council similarly proceed when addressing environmental justice concerns, as well as climate change-fueled flooding, heat islands, and environmental degradation that threaten our counties and our children's futures. I firmly believe that by being intentional and collaborative in our development and rehabilitation processes, we can better guarantee that our communities, and subsequently our businesses, will thrive economically while achieving a more just and sustainable future for all of those who call Newcastle County home. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Hoover.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jason Hoover. I spent 11 years of my life fighting to protect land that ultimately joined the National Park System. 10,000 people voiced their concerns about preserving this land, which begs the question, why aren't there better measures in place to protect our most valued places? I've always been told that you had to in order to create public land, you have to take an economic hit. But that's just not true. Many successful places around the country are utilizing their open space to drive economic value. Monroe County, Pennsylvania, Denver, Colorado, Bentonville, Arkansas, Greenville, South Carolina, and scores more. We have some tough decisions to make about our identity. In recent years, our traditional economic pillars have packed up and left in full or partial force. The Chrysler plant, AstraZeneca, DuPont. Our most storied institutions are no longer contributing to our local economy in the way that we're used to. And we have to make some fast decisions about how to cover for these losses. To make matters worse, we're living in an age where you can live in one place and work in another. Remote work has increased by 400% in the last 5 years nationwide. People can now decide where they want to live independently from where they want to work. That means that we're now competing with every county and every city across the nation. That's why we have to create a place, we have to create a reason for people to want to live here outside of large corporate employers. We're situated within 100 miles of 4 major cities, and if we try to compete with them on infrastructure alone, on urban infrastructure, we're never going to win. And if we turn our limited open space into suburban sprawl, the surrounding cities will drain us of our residents. Fortunately for us, what we have that these other cities don't is green gold. This beautiful, vibrant open space that's in close proximity to where people live. If we make green gold our very identity, we'll be able to fulfill a very real need that these surrounding cities will never be able to. In order to survive in this new economy, our open space can no longer be treated as a resource for development, instead, because it can actually be our economic engine. And by treating our open spaces for developments, we're unknowingly robbing ourselves of our long-term viability. And if you look across the nation, there are large cities and small towns alike who are leveraging their open space in this way. Places that were once the funk rose from the ashes by building infrastructure around outdoor living and recreation. Who would have thought that creating a place that people like to live could be so economically successful? I'm running for office because I want to bring long-term economic sustainability to Newcastle County through smart growth practices and open space preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Monique Johns.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Monique Johns, and I am honored to be running for Newcastle County Council President. With over 30 years of dedicated service to our community, and the founder of 2 impactful nonprofits, A Helping Hand and Dream Leadership Institute, along with Living Outside the Walls, my commitment to serving others runs deep. If elected, my focus as your council president will be on several key areas. Firstly, I aim to prioritize public works, ensuring our 254 parks are maintained and safe for our children despite the challenges of only having 42 employees managing them. Secondly, I'm passionate about fostering community engagement through our libraries, advocating for increased access to technology and community activities, especially for families in need. Thirdly, I will work closely with the county police chief to address the critical issues of public safety, tackling the shortage of officers and boosting morale within the force. Furthermore, I'll continue to fight to preserve our rural landscapes and agriculture areas. While education and supporting vulnerable groups won't fall directly under my purview as our county president, I'm committed to collaborating with other communities to meet their needs, which I do on a daily basis. I have value and insight to share and invite you to join our team. Currently, I also service our seniors, our veterans, those that have been incarcerated. I help them find employment. Although that's not a part of my position, I will continue to do so. Meeting the needs of the community and the people is what I do every day. I wake up in the morning and I look at my phone and I see a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls wanting services in need. So with your support, and I thank you for your continued support, and I am Monique Johns, your next Newcastle County Council President.
Thank you. And Robert A. Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sticking around to hear what we have to say. It's been a long, long day. First of all, I'd like to thank these ladies and gentlemen for their commitment to want to enter this race. It's a bold and brazen move to want to run for a public office. So first of all, thank you guys for jumping into this race. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm not a politician. If you need a politician, I am not your guy. I'm a public servant. Since the age of 15 years old as a volunteer fireman, going into other people's houses, putting out fires, volunteering my time, putting my life on the line. I became a Wilmington City police officer. Did that for 20 years. Rose to the rank of lieutenant. I was the commanding officer of our special operations unit, where I handled all the major events that happened in the city of Wilmington. I was also the commander of a hostage negotiation team, talking to those persons that are despondent and needing the most assistance. Might come in handy as your council president. After I retired from being a police officer after 20 years, I became a level 1 trauma nurse, working at Christiana Care in our trauma center. So I got to see our violence on both sides of this coin. The same persons that I was chasing down alleyways and arresting, the next week, the next month, I'm trying to save their life. After they were the victim of violence or unintentionally a victim of overdose. Shortly after that, I went to work for the Attorney General's office, and I was investigating these doctors that were sending out all these high levels of medication to our individuals. People who were seeking relief from pain and really had no pain management. They became addicted. I became a Wilmington City Councilman. I served for 7 years in the 7th District, and part of my fight was to represent public safety and those who are the most vulnerable, pushing to get Narcan in all the police officers and firefighters' hands to save their lives. And addiction is not a death sentence. I sat on the Wilmington Finance Committee, was the co-chair of the Public Safety Committee, and was the chairman of the Health, Aging, and Disabilities Community Council. So I spanned the gamut of my background and putting what I know to work. I'm one of 11 children. big family, so I know what it means when you gotta speak up. So council's 13 people, I think I'll be all right. 6 sisters, 5 brothers. I mean, we made it work. I took care of them. So I'm not gonna hold you here. I know we've got many questions to go through. Feel free to catch me after this thing. We'll talk some more. I look forward to being your next city council president, or your county council president, my apologies. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, as we go to the questions, I'm going to throw the first question at Val Gold first, and then go through everybody. So, as the only member of county council who represents the entire county, how does the role of this office differ from other council members, besides the obvious things like chairing council meetings? How do you conceive of this position? And is it in any way different from the others? I'm gonna pass the mic.
I think that when you are
Word, yeah. All right.
I think that when you're dealing with such a diverse population and landscape in a county such as ours, everything from rural to urban, I think you need to have an open mind. And I also believe that you need to be very collaborative in nature. My take has always been, as a teacher, that while yes, I am responsible for I teach music, so I'm responsible for music education. I spend a lot more time listening now, 20 years in, than I did in my first 5 years, that's for sure. My students have taught me so much, and I would definitely apply that same principle to a county council president position. I believe that, working, as I said in my opening statement, working with all council members, working with constituents, working with developers, all the involved players, to make sure that everyone feels heard and that everyone feels as though their voice counts. And while we may not all agree on the outcome, hopefully most of us will have got part of what we wanted in the end. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Monique to answer next.
Well, as I have been observing in the committees, I realize that the title as president, it may sound like it's, higher up, but what you have to do is build relationships. And as I was sitting and observing, I noticed that it's important to do that as county council president, to be leading and guiding, but working together as a team. And that's what will make the team work, and that will make sure that the needs of the community is met.
Thank you. Pass it down to Jason. I think it's the court, basically. Like, keep the fork on the table. It might be today. I don't know.
Yes. So I think that the role of the county council president is to understand the needs of every single district, right? Every council member represents a different constituent base, and the president is at large. And so I will rely on working with each member of the council to understand their needs, because they're talking more directly to their constituents. It's very important that I listen, and not just listen, but listen to understand, right? And a lot of what Val was talking about, it's really about relying on your team, building your team to create consensus, understand what we have in common, understand how we can make progress, even in the face of disagreements. And I have a long history of building working teams. With my business, I run a technology business in the age of AI. I run a nonprofit. I am on the Open Space Advisory Board for the county, and I run a land preservation organization. So I'm very used to working with large teams. I'm not
No, I know. It's tired too, I guess.
I'm very used to working in large teams and understanding the needs of everybody to move the organization forward.
Thank you. I'm gonna have Robert next, so I'm gonna hand you this one. Since you're right here.
All right, that's so much easier. Thank you, sir. Oh, very still. All right, having served as a councilman in the past, I see what work that has to be done on the council level. You need, it's a team approach. It's truly a team approach. And you want to take everybody's ideas and vet these suggestions and these laws that are being proposed, vet them properly, make sure that they're heard. If you know that your council member, your fellow council person is in need of assistance in their district, then go out there and give them a hand, to be part of the team, to let their constituents know that their voice matters and that the ear of the president is available and available to them should they need to have somebody come in and help them out. Serving as a council president, I think that team building would be my priority, to make sure that from the oldest member to the youngest member, all have the same voice and their voices are heard and have the same opportunities. Having written and passed legislation, I know the process. I understand what they have to go through. I understand that it's an idea that becomes a thought on paper, which then has the possibility to become law, has to go through all the vetting processes. So to be there to help them, to let them know I've been there with them, I understand what their needs are.
Thank you. And George, try that one. Let's see.
Is it working? Alright, I'll try my best not to move too much. So yeah, I mean, I agree with everything everybody up here is saying. County council president, there's just one other vote, just like every other council member. The real point is that they're a person that, you know, there's an issue in council district number 2, there's an issue in council district number 8. They're the intermediary. They're the person who's going to be breaking this up. You know, they're also serving as the sort of face of the council, and who other points of other governments they want to come and talk to the council president. So the mayor of Newark or the mayor of Wilmington might want to talk with council about council issues, or the county executive or somebody from the state office wants to talk about what needs to happen in Newcastle County. The county council president needs to be somebody that's able to communicate across all those barriers, to build relationships with all these other government entities in our state to make sure we're all functioning at the same level and we're all on the same page and we're all communicating with the constituents in an appropriate manner. I think I'll save everybody else some time, but if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to grab me after this.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question, Monique, I'm gonna toss it to you to start. And basically, it's a development-related question, since it's a big part of the job of county council. As we look to the next several decades of economic and land development, how will you navigate the challenges of growth without damaging quality of life in Newcastle County as people see it now? And I'll throw another little piece in here, because we talked about it earlier in other offices, but a serious problem, of course, has become affordable housing, right? We've talked about housing for the unhoused, we've talked about things like that, but affordable housing is a little bit, you know, of another level up of challenge, and it's become a huge challenge in Newcastle County. So tie this all together: economic, land development, affordable housing. How do you navigate all of this while maintaining quality of life?
Loaded question, loaded question. Well, I live currently in Middletown, so perhaps I'm experiencing it myself. And I think it's important because, as George was saying, that to work with the other county council individuals, because each area is different. And it's important that we do have affordable housing. I currently am in the schools and I'm teaching young kids from kindergarten to seniors, and I can see the disparity and I can see the challenges from where they live and how it affects their education and the morale and things of that nature. But what I've learned since I've been here 20 years in Middletown is a lot of the development has already taken place prior to us coming. So I would work with the council. I would work with the council. I would work with the county executive to make sure that we meet the needs of each community. And we know affordable housing is a challenge. So we have to create more housing that is really affordable. So we say it's affordable housing, but really that it's affordable, and we need to create more jobs for that. So we increase the pay, then we can have better housing. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Just pass it over here to Robert. We're gonna see, try that connection between there, just kind of. If that helps.
Let's see, there you go, good job, okay. Keep
Maybe
this
Val has
as
to
brief as
sit, that's right, just let's try.
So, I'm of the firm belief that I put a lot of faith in my fellow council members. They are elected to be your voice on council. Persons of those districts put those individuals into office to represent their goals, needs, and wants and desires. As a lifelong resident of Delaware, I mean, I can remember stretches of land where it was just open space, and now we're starting to get a little bit more crowded. So we have to put a whole lot of thought into what we're doing and what we're allowing to get through. I think that it's very important that the district council member endorses or supports each project that's in their district. Because as I said, they are speaking on the needs of their constituents. And as county council president, if it's something they endorse and it's something that they can stand behind, I would stand with them and help them get that achieved, making sure it met from the lowest economical challenged person to the richest person in our state, from Greenville to Port Penn. Everybody's voice is important. Everybody needs an equal opportunity to get and live the best possible life and raise a family in the state of Delaware, specifically Newcastle County.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask Val to answer next.
I'm gonna stand up, so, because that's, I jinxed it. Affordable housing, we've been talking about it all day, because it is a very, very pertinent issue. And, we have a lot of great population centers in our county. We have Middletown, we have Newcastle, we have Newark, we have Wilmington, we have Claymont, and we have unincorporated areas such as Hocassin that are population centers that already exist, where there's already sewer, where there are already utilities. And a lot of the space that where our population centers exist is not utilized to its maximum potential. Now, I'm not saying, we build it up to look like Philadelphia or anything, that's not what I'm saying, but we can limit environmental harms and preserve our open space by making better use of the space that's already in use. And that's one way that we can ensure that our quality of life is maintained or elevated. Another thing that we could do is utilize inclusionary zoning so that folks aren't having to rely on cars so much for transportation. If our communities are more walkable, it improves the quality of life of seniors who are able to walk to a grocery store, walk to a dentist office. I'm fortunate enough to live in Trolley Square, and that is a what's called a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community. And it has decent, the public transportation could be improved, but if we have all sorts of affordable housing available in lots of different areas, that helps a lot of people out. And then finally, we have people struggling to afford housing that are in that 80 to 120% AMI bracket. Everyone from that point up needs help with affordable housing right now, and I think council could do a lot to encourage all those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Pass it on down to George, please, and then Jason.
All right, I'm back. So, land use development in general, these are all positive things that we need to happen. There are communities all over the county that have been, former farmland that are turned into suburban sprawl. I know we talk about this, but it can be good, it can be bad. It can be done well, it can be done poorly. I think it's really important to make sure that we're doing those things well. I think it's very important that we take advantage of the areas that already exist, that have been developed, that are in blight, and figure out a way to make them, more walkable communities. I think the pocket community thing was really good. With land use development, though, as the current president, Kara Holiday, pointed out, there was the massive rezoning plan that got rejected. A lot of people were really upset about that. 10,000 people from Alapocas came out and were upset about Insight being developed, for example, things like that. What we really need to do is we need to talk to current Newcastle County residents and make sure that they're aware of when development is happening, and then putting in a system like, you can put your phone number in, and if you live within a mile of something that's getting rezoned, you get a text that says the council date and the rezoning hearing is now, at this address, at this time, come here. I think people are just feeling a little bit unincluded, and I think if you can get some inclusion on the beginning, it'll become smoother on the back end, and we'll all get proper development with good input from everybody, and things can move accordingly. I think communication is key when it comes to land use development. Obviously, the representatives from each of their districts are going to have more of an insight than the president, most likely, in what should be in their community and what shouldn't be, and that's something that I'd also like to champion. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Dave. Would you mind repeating?
Yeah, it was basically thinking about, the future economic and land development, affordable housing. How do you navigate the challenges of growth in Newcastle County without also damaging quality of life?
Great. To me, this really boils down to one major thing: zoning. Zoning is the thing that shapes our communities. It's what it ultimately determines what it's going to look like and how it's going to function. And we can reassess different areas that have been zoned for ways that maybe just don't fit anymore. If there's an area that's zoned for just single-family homes, it's very limited in what you can put there. So if actually density is actually our friend. It's really helpful to create walkable communities. You create a little more compactness, and all of a sudden you have people living there in townhomes, in single-family homes, and apartments, all different types of diversity of types of people, economically, socially, and what you're doing is you're creating a place where people actually like to live. Businesses can pop up. When you have enough density, you can actually have a cafe that you can walk to. You can have restaurants that you can go to, places that you can meet up with your friends, yoga studios, things like that. So zoning is really the tool at our disposal. We can also use incentives, and we can give bonuses for density, hitting certain density requirements. We can give rewards for creating open space, or we can require that a certain amount of open space be created within any development. But if this goes unregulated, then we're not going to be able to build the community in the way that we want it to be realized. So if we want to see more workforce housing and more affordable housing, then we have to zone it in a way that incentivizes developers to be able to create that and still turn a profit. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And you just hold on to the mic because I'm going to have you start on the third question.
Great.
Which continues on, but it's from a slightly different perspective. What role should the community play in development issues? Clearly the proposed comprehensive rezoning is dead because of public response, but it was late response in a sense, right? It was reactive. And so the question is, how do you get people involved earlier in the process? How do you make sure it isn't just for show, that their input is actually meaningful?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I saw a lot when I worked on my land preservation efforts. People felt a connection to these spaces, and they only knew that that something was happening when they saw those big yellow signs pop up, right? We see them all over the place. We go, oh, shoot, I guess that old building's gonna be knocked down, or that park's gonna be developed, right? We have this disconnect. I mean, it's a nice attempt to try to inform the public that things are gonna happen, but there is this missing piece of how do we explain to people in a simple way, something that can be kind of complicated, maybe even a little boring, right? Let's be honest. We need ways to engage our communities from the ground level. I think the RD model is actually pretty amazing and really effective. And I think we need to create mechanisms that actually reach out to communities, find leaders within each neighborhood, each community that can represent their neighborhood. And just create some digital infrastructure around ways that people can voice their concerns, ask questions. Right now, there's no way to do it. In fact, if there is a development, people don't even know who to ask, so they just start yelling, right? So I work in technology. My job is to create clear channels of communication for people on every different level. And I have a lot of great ideas in terms of implementing these strategies to bridge that gap between community and government.
Thank you. Pass it on to George. George, your turn.
All right. So I think I kind of answered that with my whole text thing in the last question. But I really think that this is something we do need to highlight. Why is it so complicated? Why is it so difficult to figure out when these things are happening, where they're happening, and who I need to talk to about this issue? And I think everybody here is sitting here, and I'm sure at some point, either today, yesterday, you got a text and it was like, do you want to stop receiving? Send stop back on this because you're sending too many texts. Why can't we do that with informing the public about things that are happening within a mile of their home? I want to get that text. I don't want to get a text soliciting me, for Temu. No fun. So, we need to implement things like that in the modern world that people are actually using. There's plenty of ways to get information directly into people's phones. Everyone's tracking everyone anywhere anyway, to include the government and the county. So you might as well use it for good and tell them what's going on so that everybody can be on the same page and we can all work together to build a new Newcastle County in the image that we all want, which is safe, affordable, walkable, all these sorts of things. No one wants a blight. No one wants to destroy beautiful farm. There's a reason we all live here. Woodside Farms, great. Would I want, massive, ugly Amazon warehouse next to it? No, that would make this place not so great. So let's all work on trying to keep that together. I think everybody's on the same page with that, but it starts with making sure that everybody is communicating and that we all just know where to show up.
Thank you. Robert, you're up next on this.
Thank you, sir. Getting the word out is probably the most important thing there is. I'm currently the State of Delaware 911 administrator, so the technology is there. We can reach you if we need to reach you. Having been a homeowner and have my neighbor get a notification of the rezoning, but not me, was a little unnerving because this magical line just so happened to exclude me, and they had the opportunity to go to a meeting that affected my family just as much as their family. So I felt that the whole system needs to be redone. Going in person, sitting before a zoning board, saying your piece carries a lot of weight. I've been there. I've testified for my constituents when I was in the city about certain rezonings that were going to affect their lives. That's after going to the community meetings, getting their valuable input, and then taking and being their voice. I think that each and every citizen should have the right to be there and say what's on their mind. We've got Zoom meetings, we've got team meetings, we've got every opportunity to get you there. It's just notifying you and letting you know that this meeting's taking place and letting you know that it affects you and your family directly is the message that needs to be delivered. And the systems are in place. As the county council president, it would be my job to make sure that we tap into that and get those messages out to those folks to make sure that their voices are heard. Because that's what our role as government is to heed to the word of the constituents we serve and to make sure that we give them the best possible quality of life.
Thank you. Monique?
Well, I loved all the answers, they were great. I loved George's answer and talking about the text. And, the important thing is developing relationships. We have great ideas, but you have to develop a relationship with not just the council, but with the community. So I'm the voice of the people. So with that being said, I would make sure we have to communicate, over-communicate. And then we have to have town halls. We have to have certain sessions that we all come together and we explain, as Jason was saying, that it's important for them to understand what's actually happening. And as those yellow signs go up, they make me upset too. Because then I'll say, I missed the meeting. And they said, they sent you something, I never received it. So as county council president and having a connection with the people in the community, I will make sure that of course, as Bob was saying, the voices are heard and it's very important, but the word gets out to that particular area to make sure they know what's going on, and that's critical. And also, I think someone said about coming to the meetings as well and having their voice being heard. That is everything to an individual. So it's important that we do that, and that's the top of my list. That's what I do every day, is communicate, communicate, communicate. Make everyone aware on what's happening in your area, with your family, with your children, and your development, outside of your development, the WAWA that's coming up, all those things. So it's important that we do that.
Thank you. And Val?
Okay, yeah, so, great ideas from all of my colleagues up here. I also believe that communication is critical. So I'm not going to spend any time reiterating what everyone else has already said, but what I will say is that in my building, so I live in a condo building, and one of my neighbors is going to be 105 this year, 105. And she is not able to go to a meeting. She is not able, she's not getting on Zoom. She doesn't own a cell phone. There are going to be some instances, and I believe that this is critical to the county council president's role, that we need to meet folks where they are. We will need to send mail. We might need to, partner up with RDs and, the elected council person for that district and go into individual buildings and talk to folks if they're going to be affected by whatever zoning or development decision that there's going to be. So in addition to utilizing all the great technology that we have, which by the way is great until it's not, we also need to work on reaching those people who may not have access to that technology, and that goes from seniors to those who may be low-income folks who cannot afford to access that technology. So I would like to see county council do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all 5 of our great Democratic candidates for coming